In a series of many lectures, I'll be talking about carbohydrates. In this session, I'll be discussing about definition and functions of the carbohydrates. The objective set for this session are definition and functions. Before going into the definition, let us talk about some points about the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are widely present. Carbohydrates are widely present both in nature. Generally they are present plants as well as animals. So plants and animals and many other organisms. Okay. Then, so to define, we have to have some basis. What carbohydrates they contain? Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Not only that, sometimes there is a presence of nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfate. They are having many hydroxyl groups. So we say hydrates, we can say hydrates of carbon. They are called hydrates of carbon. Okay. So the carbohydrates, they are hydrates of carbon. Is there any formula to show them? The formula, we can say empirical, okay, formula. What is that formula? The formula is CnH2O. So this is the formula. In this formula, we can represent carbohydrates. Okay. Carbohydrates are also called saccharides. They are also called saccharides like monosaccharide, disaccharide, polysaccharides. Why this name? Because in Greek, saccharines means sweet or sugar. So based on that one, so they are called saccharides. Let us come to the definition aspect. How do we define? What basis shall we take for the defining of carbohydrate? The basis we take is presence of functional groups, either CHO, aldehyde or CO, that is ketone group. This is, we call it aldehyde, okay, or this is called ketone groups. Some carbohydrates, they contain aldehyde group, or some other carbohydrates, they contain ketone group. So taking this basis, let us define the carbohydrates. We say aldehydes are ketone derivatives of, as I said, many hydroxyl groups are there. So we can say polyhydroxy alcohols. So we can say, so aldehyde or ketone derivatives of polyhydroxy alcohols, or in other way also we can say compounds. So when you put them under the process of hydrolysis, so we get derivatives. So what we can say, basically when you take a whole aspect, I can say carbohydrates are defined as aldehyde or ketone derivatives of polyhydroxy alcohols, or compounds, those compounds which they are put on hydrolysis. When they are hydrolyzed, derivatives are formed. They also can be included in the section of the carbohydrates. Let us take up the second aspect. That is what we say, the functions of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, as I said, they are widely present in nature. So they have a lot of functions. The first one is diet. So they are used as dietary staple. Okay, dietary staple. So in many parts of the world, many people are dependent on carbohydrates for their survival. The second one is energy. Energy point of view, carbohydrates are very important in the production of ATP or GTP. In the production of ATP or GTP, they are very important as far as energy is concerned. When you see the glucose is major, it is a major, metabolic fuel. It is a major metabolic fuel for living organisms. It is living organisms. Glucose is the major metabolic fuel for the living organisms. Next, take up the third function. What is the third function? It is storage. Another important aspect. Carbohydrates are stored. Suppose if the person is on fasting, the stored carbohydrates are useful. So stored, say in two ways. One is starch. Starch in plants. Starch in plants and glycogen in animals. It is glycogen in animals. Then the next one is the production of important biomolecules. There is production of important so biomolecules. What are these biomolecules? Let us take some example. It is very difficult to take all the examples. Suppose when you say glucose. From glucose, so there is a production of ribose into the pentose phosphate pathway and deoxyribose. So ribose is part of RNA. What is RNA? That is ribonucleic acid. Then deoxyribose is part of DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid. Then also when you talk about the glucose, so you see the galactose. The galactose, glucose with combination with the galactose leads to formation of lactose. Lactose is called milk sugar. Okay, milk sugar. Then also carbohydrates in the form of glycoproteins or in the form of glycolipids. So they are important constituents of cell membrane. Structure of the cell membrane. Cell membrane structure they maintain. So these glycolipids and glycoproteins, they maintain the cell membrane structure. Then the next one is proteoglycans. The next one is proteoglycans. Okay. So in the proteoglycans, so they have a very important role. One is protection. Okay, giving shape and support. Okay, to cells. Okay, tissues and okay, organs. So proteoglycans play very important role in the protection, shape, support to cells, tissues and organs. Then also another aspect is okay, structural compounds of okay, then plants, exoskeleton of many organisms including insects. Okay, then the next one, another important function is as oligosaccharides. Another important function is oligosaccharides. When you talk about the oligosaccharides, what are oligosaccharides? The oligosaccharides are so the combination of the monosaccharides from 2 to 10. They combine with plasma membrane, cell membrane, plasma membrane. Once they combine with the plasma membrane, so they play very important crucial role. One is cell recognition. That is the one aspect. Okay, then the next one is adhesion. The next one is cell migration. Okay, it is cell migration. cell migration during development. Okay, development. That is the another important aspect. Then also in blood clotting process. It is blood clotting process. Blood clotting process. Then also in immune response. Immune response. Okay, immune response. Then wound healing. Wound healing. Okay, then the final one is cellular processes. Cellular processes. Okay, so these are the various functions they deliver. See, the oligosaccharides combined with the plasma membrane, they are helping the cell recognition, adhesion, cell migration during development, blood clotting, immune response, wound healing, and cellular processes. So what happens here? So here the thing is, this is very important aspect. If their cell recognition is lost, adhesion is lost, then there is a control on cell growth. That is what happens in malignancy. The next function is the dietary fiber. What is dietary fiber? What are the examples of dietary fiber? The dietary fiber example is cellulose and also pectins. The cellulose, it cannot be digested as there is no enzyme cellulase. But what is its use when it is not being digested? So it helps in the digestion process. It reduces the peristaltic movements, and also it decreases the absorption of cholesterol, so the serum cholesterol is decreased. That we'll study in later course of time. Then the next one is eighth function is detoxification process. What is detoxification? The detoxification is, so there are many toxic substances are produced in our body. Also we take every day many toxic substances. They have to be removed. So through the detoxification process, either they become less toxic or their toxicity is nullified. In that way, so after that they will be removed from the body. So here what happens? One example is from the glucose, there is a formation of glucuronic acid. There is a formation of glucuronic acid. This glucuronic acid, so is a detoxifying agent. It combines with bilirubin, which is a toxic substance, making it soluble in water so that it facilitates the removal of bilirubin from the body. Okay, then the final question arises, why we are studying about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, the abnormal metabolism of carbohydrates, so lead to development of some diseases, leads to various diseases. What are the examples of various diseases? So that is diabetes mellitus. It is the most common disease and having many complications. So entire world is, many people are afflicted with this disease. The worrying point is more and more younger people, so they are being afflicted with the diabetes. India, in recent years, the prevalence has been increased so much. So now it is, people call it, India is going to become a diabetic capital of the world. Also, there is another disease, galactosemia. So there is another disease, so that is, we call it galactosemia. So this galactosemia, and of course, there are many diseases are there. Okay. So after studying this, let me summarize these aspects. Okay. In this session, what we have taken up? In this session, we have taken up definition and functions. The objectives are, at the end of the session, the learner shall be able to define carbohydrates and describe various functions. Carbohydrates are widely present in nature, plants, animals, and many organisms. Carbohydrates contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Of course, sometimes nitrogen, phosphate, sulfate are present. So based on the presence of carbon, nitrogen, they are called hydrates of carbon. Okay, empirical formula is CnH2ON. They are also called saccharides because in Greek, saccharins means sugar, sweet. So based on that one, they are called saccharides. Now we come to the definition. The basis of the definition is presence of functional group, aldehyde or ketone group. So aldehyde or ketone derivatives of polyhydroxy alcohols or compounds on hydrolysis leads to formation of such derivatives. Okay, then we talked about the functions, diet. So dietary staple in many parts of the world, energy, ATP and or GTP, glucose, major metabolic fuel for the living organisms, storage, starch in plants, glycogen in animals, production of important biomolecules, glucose, ribose, deoxyribose. Ribose is part of the RNA. Deoxyribose is part of the DNA. Galactose and glucose combine leads to formation of lactose. Lactose is a milk sugar. The glycoproteins, glycolipids, cell membrane structure, proteoglycans, protection, shape, support to cells, tissues and organs. Then structural compounds of plants and exoskeleton. Okay, oligosaccharides in combination with the plasma membrane, they deliver many functions: cell recognition, adhesion, cell migration during development, blood clotting, immune response, wound healing, cellular processes. Then dietary fiber, detoxification, glucose to gluconic acid involved in the detoxification process. Why carbohydrate study? Abnormal metabolism of carbohydrates leads to development of diseases. One of the most common with more complications is diabetes mellitus and also galactosemia, and there are many other diseases. So with this, we have completed this section of definitional functions. In the next session, so we'll be talking about the classification of carbohydrates and monosaccharides. Thank you very much.